On In Radio, on YouTube, on Omni Studio, and wherever you get your podcasts, I'm James Cridland, the radio futurologist. I hope you're really concentrating this week, because this week I've got some numbers for you, because it's an important week for the future of radio. This week FM is closing down in Norway. FM broadcasts in one area of Norway finally fall silent this week. The majority of radio stations move over to broadcast on DAB+, alongside online and DTV, and the whole country will have turned off FM by the end of the year. Now, there are some tiny little radio stations still broadcasting on FM. They're about 5% of Norway's total radio listening hours, so they don't really matter. DAB+, well, what's that? It's broadcast radio. It's just like FM or AM. You need a new receiver, but it works in exactly the same way. It broadcasts from a tower, and you receive it on an antenna on your car or in your house. But a lot of people are saying, why bother with broadcast radio when streaming is all we need? And why don't we just turn all of these radio stations off, FM, and just stream them? Well, if you were to do that, you'd be crazy. And let me show you why with some maths. Because in many countries, you rent your FM or your DAB broadcast equipment from a transmission provider. Now, when you rent equipment like this, that means that they're dealing with the maintenance, they're dealing with the electricity bills, they're dealing with buying the equipment in the first place. They just give you a monthly fee. And that's good, because that helps us look at the difference between FM broadcasting and internet broadcasting. So I picked a radio station at random in the UK. They spend $6,000 a month on their FM transmission. $6,000 a month. Now, their FM transmission covers 2.5 million adults. The radio station that I picked had a market share of 5%. And at their peak time at breakfast, 43,000 listeners are tuning in at the same time. 43,000. Now, why am I telling you that? Because with FM and DAB, it doesn't actually matter how many people are tuned in. It makes no difference to the cost of the transmitter, obviously. But with internet streaming, it does make a difference, because you have to pay for enough capacity to cope. You have to pay for servers, enough servers to do the connections, and enough bandwidth. Now, 43,000 is a lot of concurrent listeners for internet streaming. Most radio stations won't be doing anywhere near that. I know of a few running about 15,000 at peak. Most are in the hundreds. Beats One probably has about 5. But I spoke to an internet streaming company which specialises in radio streaming for large companies, and their rough costs are $55 a month for 100 concurrent streams. So a maximum of 100 listeners at the same time will cost you $55 a month. So to turn off FM and have to stream that radio station with 43,000 listeners at breakfast would cost $23,650 a month. Internet is 4 times more expensive than an FM transmitter. Let's work it out a different way. That radio station has 11 million total listening hours a month. So if you want to go and do some other rough costs, then you can. Why don't you do what I did and go to Amazon CloudFront and have a look at how much that will cost you in terms of just bandwidth? So I checked it, and the Amazon AWS pricing calculator told me that for the 343 terabytes that the audience of this radio station would use, streaming it online, that would cost $65,000 a month. So the proper radio streamers I spoke to earlier must have a pretty good deal, because they were only going to charge me $23,000. And then there's the cost to the consumer. That radio station's listened to for 32 hours a month by each listener. That's roughly a gig's worth of data per month. I don't know whether you've got a gig's worth of data spare on your mobile phone contract. I know that I probably don't. So that isn't entirely free either. Then there's the reliability of a data signal for live streaming as well. Streaming uses 7 times more battery than listening to FM on the same device. And then there's the cost of music rights and so on and so forth. Now, in Bodø, the capital of Nordland, the county in Norway where they're first to switch, and 2 places that probably aren't pronounced anything like that, a typical FM listener might get 10 radio stations, but when they turn on their DAB Plus radio, they'll get about 30 radio stations there. That's a significant increase in choice, and maybe that explains the global trends. Because live internet streaming for radio is really growing very slowly, far slower than DAB take-up in most countries, including Norway. So even when people are being forced to change their radio sets, they don't start using streaming. They stick to broadcast radio. And why wouldn't they? It's free, reliable, it works, and it's got the choice they want. Now, FM broadcasting is great. I've nothing against it. Also, internet broadcasting is great. It's definitely part of radio's future. But it can't be a replacement for broadcast. Not yet, anyway. Now, you can get my weekly newsletter at james.crid.land. It'll be an easier listen next week, I promise. So until next time, keep listening.